a series of talks this week, 3 ladies over 3 days, all giving 3 different talks. We've had Anna Winehoven, sorry, who is a student who kicked off our talks. Tomorrow we've got Anna Jackamzak from McCann, who is an alumni. But right now we have Nikky Lyle. So I'm going to leave all the accolades to Paolo Ferraletto, who is one of the tutors on our course, and hand over to you guys. If you want to share your screen, that should be enabled. So if you need to, please do. And that's me.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome, everybody. And a special thank you to Nikky for joining us. Appreciate you're busy. Just a quick read of your bio here is pretty impressive. Independent recruiter for creative industries, D&AD President Judge 2020, TEDx 21 speaker, podcast host, event organizer. Have I missed anything?
I think that's it.
busy times for you. So, really grateful that you could make it today.
No,
and I just open, really, sorry, just to ask you just for a brief overview of your career to date, sort of up to, were you a creator before you became a recruiter, and how did you get into being a recruiter?
Yeah, okay. Well, firstly, thank you so much for asking me to be here. I love giving these kind of talks, and especially for people that are junior in the industry. So I'll try and make this brief. I was always drawn towards the creative industry. I wanted to be a creative myself. I actually studied at Falmouth University. I wanted to be a designer, but being from a working class background, my parents said to me, don't do that, you won't get a job or make money. Choose photography, it's more of a trade. Right? So that was their logic. So they pushed me down the photography route. I did a photography degree, and I finished uni in 2010, which wasn't long after the last recession, and it just wasn't a great market. And my brother was a recruiter. And so he led me down the path of recruitment, and then I somehow ended up falling into creative recruitment. So I got to combine my love of the industry, worked with loads of different design agencies. I've worked with a variety of different brands, and found it really interesting actually to get to know different companies and different work cultures and their whole process and how they all work. So I felt very lucky. I genuinely really enjoy what I do. I don't know if, as recruiters, we don't all have the best name in the industry, right? Not a lot of people like us.
Yours isn't the worst.
Yeah, almost like sometimes I feel like I should have parking attendant, warden hat on sometimes when I used to introduce myself, but that doesn't happen these days. But at the start of my career, it was quite challenging being a recruiter. The D&AD stuff happened because I identified a few years ago that loads of creatives had these projects in their portfolios, which was separate to the commercial work they were producing in their jobs. And these projects were so cool. I met a guy called Sam, who there's a certain type of electronic music that he loved. And so he set up his own record label and did all the album designs. I was like, this is brilliant. I love this whatever this is. And then I noticed other creatives had all these projects. And it's when I met with Vicky Ross, who is an incredible copywriter. I don't know if anyone here is into copywriting or that as a career. You should check her out, follow her on Twitter. But we had a meeting and she said, these projects are called side hustles. And believe it or not, D&AD are actually looking at that as a category for the potential to win a pencil in that. So I thought, that's really interesting. So we actually put on our own event. My first ever company was called Nurture Creatives, and that was when my old bosses invested in me to set up a recruitment company. So I'm aware I'm jumping about a bit here. So I worked my way up in recruitment. I left my old company. My bosses invested in me to set up a business, and we called it Nurture Creatives. So my first event was called Nurture Your Side Hustle. And it was all about explaining different side hustles in the industry and how passion projects and side hustles can actually be used as a way to develop you in your career as a creative. So yeah, we run that event, both myself and Vicky Ross, and that's when D&AD very first approached me and said, oh, you know a lot about side hustles. We're starting to venture into this industry ourselves. Do you want to be a judge on our panel? So that's how I got on with D&AD. And then I was president judge this year, and I've helped them with content for their new startup school that they're running at the moment.
And can I ask, do you have a side hustle still with your photography, or have you just left that behind?
I wasn't very good at it.
Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, I do love photography in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of people out there that are far more talented than me. But the fact that I am naturally a creative really helps when it comes to running a business, actually, because I'm very good at coming up with ideas and then working out, okay, how can this be monetized, actually? So I've ended up being able to use my creativity, but in a different way.
Absolutely, it still works. So these 3 talks really are around female representation in industry. So as a recruiter, I wanted to ask, just for for our students and alumni, in terms of past and present, how do you feel that the females are being represented in industry at the moment? Do you think there's more opportunities for females? Do they reach the top in this day and age, or what kind of things are happening out there? Could you tell us?
Yeah, I love the fact you've asked me this question, because my own experience as a female recruiter, why I left my last company was because I asked for a pay rise, and my old employer said, if you hit a certain target, then we'll give you a pay rise. I went above and beyond that, and I just got a couple of certificates and bottles of bubbly and a 1K pay rise. So that's why I left. Okay, so it's a strategic move on my end. And then they invested in me to set up a business. So it's about knowing your worth. And then I went to a company called Red Sofa, and that was when the salaries were announced by the BBC about the gender wage gaps, and there was this male journalist whizzing around on a scooter and wanted to speak to recruiters about this. Okay, so he spoke to me, and I explained the fact that we have something in the UK that seems to be referred to as the motherhood penalty, and when women are of a certain age, they're considered that they may go off and have children. Okay, forgetting the fact that mothers don't just become parents, people become parents. It's actually insulting to men as well, just
Sure.
saying that they're not going to be involved in childcare responsibilities. So yeah, this male journalist interviewed me and kept saying, men are better negotiators, men are better negotiators. And I said, well, no, this is the situation. Look at the Scandinavian countries and how they're leading the way. And in Iceland, it's actually illegal when you're interviewing a male and female to treat them differently. So anyway, I wasn't actually aired on Sky News. They'd found a female in the industry that backed his angle, and that really annoyed me. And I then was mentoring women in the industry for Kerning the Gap, which is great. I advise any males or females even to look up Kerning the Gap in the industry. And so I was mentoring all these great women, and they're saying there's a certain level we can't move beyond because the board is very much controlled by predominantly males. And I realized the board of my own company was controlled by my 2 male investors, which were my old bosses. So I had to leave that business, even though I'd paid back all investment and turned over profit in the first 14 months. And then moved back home to my mum's spare room and set up Nikky Lyle Creative. So I'm completely self-funded. I worked 6 minimum wage jobs. I went from, being in the city, earning quite good money as a recruiter, to suddenly doing like laundry. I worked as a waitress. At the weekends, I worked in nightclubs. I did Just Eats on my bike. So I was delivering food, anything and everything, and put all that money into Nikky Lyle Creative. And I think that's part of the success of what I do, because I run my business on my own terms, and industry leaders is all something that I've created, and possibly because I haven't had investors breathing down my neck. But sorry, Paolo, I've totally gone off track. But okay. I want to lead it back into the design industry. So what happens is we normally have slightly more females graduating than males, and then somewhere along the lines I said that these promotional changes happen when a woman's of a certain age. And I'm obviously very much an advocate in the industry for equality and equity, I'm actually doing a TED talk in a few months, which is looking at privilege within the industry, all different types of privilege as well. So yeah, that will be coming out in a couple of months.
I think the reason I ask is, you know, we have a lot of female students, and obviously we keep in touch with most of them. It's just, you know, after a couple of years, they sort of give up and sort of go into something else, even at a young age. It's just really, so how can we better encourage, you know, our female students to stick at it and to not be put off by a generally male-dominated arena? Is just to keep them going, you know. So.
Yeah, and I think as well, without lack of representation and a lot of you know, younger female creatives seeing more senior female creatives, you almost can't be what you can't see, right? And we need to make sure that people are being promoted and women are being promoted, and making sure that they're helping to develop other talented female creators through the ranks. And not only that, it's also once people do have children, and of course, like as I said, people become parents, not just mothers in the equations here, but that support, that adequate support as well. And I feel that the pandemic, because the fact that more dads have had a chance to be at home, more involved in their children, and I'm generalizing here, I'm so mindful that there are lots of dads that are heavily involved in you know, child care responsibilities. It's a real shame that this is the main topic that I'm talking about, right? Why this tends to be the reason. But in this country, that tends to be the main reason that I've seen. It's nothing to do with the talent and capabilities of the females. It's
still an issue. That's the reason I'm asking, and it's, you know, I in my mind, not much has changed since I was sort of, you know, junior designer all that time ago. I've got friends similar age who went into the industry at the same time. They just gave up. They got as far as creative director and just got fed up with being at that level with what was going on around them. So, yeah, I'm talking about 5 years ago. But you know, for us to encourage the next generation, it's, you know, how can we do it better? That's all, more than anything. So it's good to have that feedback for them. I wanted to ask about job roles. So I'm trying to help some of the third years in terms of helping the CV development, that kind of thing. We're looking at job roles, and even as junior designers, they are, you know, some agencies ask for so much. You know, gone is the days where you just have to have a basic working knowledge of Adobe programs. They're asking for, you know, the print, the motion, everything. There's a whole list of this incredible web design, all sorts of things. I mean, what advice could you give to students? One, apart from not be scared of all that, and to go with what they're best at, what else could you offer them in terms of when they're looking at junior designer roles?
Yeah, firstly, like, my heart goes out to every junior at the moment, because it is really tough out there. And you're right, there are certain companies out there that are asking for ridiculous set of criteria and skills on CVs and portfolios that they didn't used to. Things like, being able to use the basic Adobe software, but also being able to come up with like concepts and develop those through to like mock-ups, and then being able to have skills in motion, and then a little bit of digital. It's so demanding at the moment. And I think because we're in a quite tough market, I think agencies are asking for a little bit more. And it was like this when I first started out in recruitment about 10 years ago, where all I was doing was meeting with really talented people. And then I was interviewed by Computer Arts about 5 years later, saying the market is so buoyant that designers can pretty much ask whatever salary they want within reason. So I think right now it's tough and the expectations are higher, because it's reflective of the market and the lack of opportunities. But I don't want any designers to be discouraged, because one thing I'd like to say is, you don't have to be out of the industry unless you choose to. And by that, I mean, as a creative, try to keep creating, try to keep collaborating, working on self-initiated work. When I set up Industry Leaders, there was no jobs out there. The market was cold. Like, my entire pipeline had evaporated, and I've only just started picking up, and I am quite honest with this. I actually had to take up hours as a support worker with adults with disabilities. So I was running Industry Leaders for free, and I was doing all the podcasts, but I was having to earn extra money on the side. But that doesn't matter, right? No one really cares about that, because at the end of the day, you've got Industry Leaders. I created post-quarantine. I was president judge for D&AD for side hustles while still doing other work on the side. Okay, so this is another thing that I want creators to remember, that, you know, if you can't get a job right now in the industry and it means you have to pick up some hours somewhere else, you haven't failed as a designer or a creative, just keep going. You know, that job you've had to do to pay the bills, that's fine, but pick up some briefs where you can, or look into D&AD side hustle school, or just keep creating and keep learning, and don't give up.
No, it's important. I think it's also important to encourage the, you know, current students to, but obviously it's in an academic environment and we can't give them everything or teach them everything. So it's important we're doing other stuff outside of that, I guess. Okay, thanks for that. I wanted to ask you about, I've put a link in, by the way, everybody, to all of Nikky's stuff in a link tree. You have the resources that you have, the CVs and portfolio type support. Could you talk through those for us, please?
Yeah, so I've got a webinar that I'm running this week, and it's completely free for grads. So if as many of you want to sign up for that as possible, it will hopefully be super helpful for you. So I created some CV and portfolio guides. Those were taking my 10 years of experience in the industry, what works as a CV, what works as a portfolio. The first thing I did was run Industry Leaders with friends of mine in the industry who were recruiters, and I kept asking that question over and over again. What do you look for in a CV? What do you look for in a portfolio? And then I asked like the CFO of Wolff Olins, I asked the creative director at DesignStudio, I asked the creative director at Vayner Media, and you name it. I hit the big agencies and I asked them, what do you look for in CVs and portfolios? And I took all that information and I put it into these guides. And I've got 25% off, like, discount of those at the moment. And it's all about getting your voice in your CV and your portfolio as a creative. So that's what I've got going on. And yeah, I'd recommend that everyone signs up to the webinar, because it is for free and you get a chance to look at my guides. It's basically me talking through the guides. So and the links in my link tree that you just shared. So if anyone wants to sign up for that.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. We've had a few people just ask how to get involved in that. And yeah, it is in the chat and in the welcome room. Sorry.
Yeah. Do we have any questions at this point? I'm a bit mindful of the time. I don't want to just be asking questions myself. Anybody
we have
else?
got something from Freya. I just asked in the chat, how do young creative women feel about the future? And Freya's saying here, well, Freya, do you want to pop in, or do you want me to just read this out? Assuming she doesn't pop in, I'll just read it out. I'm sure you can pop in, Freya.
Hello.
Hi, Freya.
So I just thought, like, I feel nervous. I need to change the way I approach things and act more confident and believe in myself and work a lot more, and maybe not the time to be shy.
Hey Freya. So juniors are going to be shy and nervous. That's just the way it is. Like, my goodness, when I remember when I finished university, and it's terrifying, and you're just like, oh my God, it's like new, it's a shock to the system. I actually, a year ago, was terrified of public speaking. A year ago, you'd never got me to do this. Hated it. I was so scared, and it's almost like the shock factor. Like, once you get used to it and you do it a couple of times, and like, even the fact that you're asking this question now, I'm sure it might be nerve-wracking in a way, but it's, people expect that with juniors, and that's totally okay. The main thing you can do to help overcome nerves is preparation. So if you do get an interview and you are so prepared and you've gone through you know, that company, and you've got a really good set of questions, And also good tip, I don't know if you're asking about interviews, but to help with nerves, if ever they, like, always make sure you have water there, so then they ask a difficult question, you can just sip and think, and that really helps clear your throat. So yeah, the nerve things is okay, and I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have a few questions as well? We've got the floor open. Please do feel free to put your cameras on, guys. I'm just wanted to say that if Nikki can put a face to the name, then that's a nice little networking tip if you do bump into each other again, or if you want to pursue more of Nikki's knowledge, then it's always nice if she can see.
By the way, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I always share posts on my LinkedIn or like Instagram. I always try and update as much industry relevant like news and topics as possible there as well.
I've got a question here. Is this right, from Samuel? Did you want to read that out?
Yeah, I am.
As in yes, as in Samuel, right. I was reading the surname thinking I've got something wrong here. I've got something wrong here. No,
family.
I haven't. Yes, of course. Sorry, Sam. Yeah.
So with your opportunities in industry to gain work experience and kind of placement opportunities in industry as part of your degree, how could a student market themselves as a freelance designer, in air quotes, to, you know, get work and more experience? Because it's something that's kind of saved for those that have already been through the agency life and then separate themselves and gone freelance.
Yeah, it's really hard to start initially as a freelancer without any experience at all, I guess. I'm running a webinar session on how to set yourself up as a freelancer, by the way, where I go through things. Again, that's a free session of like limited company versus sole trader, so you can find out like your tax and how you'd actually deal with that from a kind of technical point of view. But it is going to be quite challenging if you don't have industry experience yet to go to agencies and say, hey, you know, I'm at uni, but can I work as a freelancer? Because they'll probably expect you to do some like interning for them or some design stuff for them, I would imagine, just as a starting point. Depending on your portfolio, it's hard to say without actually seeing like your portfolio and how you're presenting your work and what you could bring to an agency.
That's great, thanks. Just to follow up, is there like, sorry, that light's really bad. Is there ways in which, you know, like online, without going to the agencies, like websites and stuff, that you can promote your work to potentially find eyes to, you know, to your style and stuff?
I think you need to really reach out to companies, really like directly to approach them, because it's quite hard. Because even if you had, again, like my guides talk about this and how I even had a friend that got my guide, and she's been a freelancer for years. She said, gosh, Nikki, all this time, all I've been doing is trying to create like dazzling campaigns and trying to attract people's attention all the time. But actually people don't know about you, and that unless you approach them first and then make an introduction and say like, hey, I'm Samuel, like, here's my stuff, what do you think? Rather than trying to, unless you create a really cool like side hustle or passion project or something that catches their attention. So I mean, one thing a junior did that was Matt Dunn, that I interviewed as part of Industry Leaders, he did a collaboration with the NHS where he put condoms over graffiti penises, and that got him a lot of exposure at a junior level, which then got him jobs at like Winden and Kennedy, and now he's over at San Francisco working with one company. But that was him being quite innovative, and this campaign ended up in like BuzzFeed and Huffington Post and all the rest of it. So he did that, if you're talking about ways you can draw attention to yourself.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I know that Hannah Wilson has a question for you.
Okay. Hey, Hannah.
Hi. It's quite specific to me, but I'm just wondering if you had any advice for a recent fine art grad looking to go into graphic design, just like any courses or things I should be doing or ways to upskill myself to kind of get myself to that point.
Yeah, Hannah, that's a great question, but I wouldn't, it's really difficult, isn't it? How do you bridge the gap between fine art to graphic design?
Yeah.
Unless you try and, there are institutions out there called like in Shillington that some people join. I wouldn't necessarily say that's always the best route. There's so many designers out there that are actually self-taught, that haven't gone through the traditional route of studying a course specifically in graphic design, but you've just got to be quite willing to do your research. I mean, what are your software skills like on like Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator as a starting point?
Yeah, I'm familiar with InDesign and Photoshop and Adobe Premiere Pro, so I have an okay knowledge of those.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of graphic design is it's all about your portfolio. Like 99.9% of the time, that's all companies look at, and then your CV is a factual document they might look at afterwards. So if you can get some formal projects in your portfolio where you can demonstrate an understanding of design, and you've come up with some really interesting concepts or solutions, and then you've maybe created some mock-ups of that, or there's nothing stopping you maybe reaching out to some people asking, hey, do you want me to design a logo for you? And then you could start really basic, like a small business, and then work on like business cards for them, or an identity, or it all depends like where you want to go with it. And I guess you need to work out what kind of a designer you want to be. Like, design is so broad. There's advertising, there's branding, there's in-house client side, there's packaging, there's, do you want to work for like small startup brands and businesses? Like, there's all these things to consider. And if you want to work for like the big agencies, that's a totally different route to if you're happy working with small startups. So that's one thing to really consider in regards to working out your career path as a graphic designer. Like, what type of designer do you imagine yourself being, Hannah? Do you have that in mind?
I think that's part of the problem. I'm not sure because I haven't really explored what there is available for me to do in jobs. Like, I'm kind of like thinking that I need to do a graphic design course, a short course or something, so that I get an idea about what might suit me. So I'm kind of just a state of a bit confused about how to like go on, like what course to choose, because there's so many different little courses out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't really necessarily be able to advise at this moment what courses. I would just say go out there, do some research, ask on the dots, ask some like industry peers perhaps what courses there are that you could do to bridge the gap between your fine art degree and becoming a designer.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Any more questions? Can't see any in the chat.
Can I just ask something, Paolo?
Sure.
Thank you. Hi, Nikki.
Hey, Alex.
On the course, well, in the department, but especially on the GDA course, we try and embed as much practice-based research and put as many outward-facing opportunities as possible in front of the students. For example, I know there's some second years here at the moment, and they're working on an industry research document where, well, I call it the spa day, where they can sit and think about what it all means to them and plan for the future, don't take it for granted. And they're working on 2 sections at the moment, keeping your finger on the pulse, where they look at networking opportunities and competitions and showcases that they can get involved in. And also market research as well, what jobs are available and what skills they've already got. So I was wondering if you could just reiterate for me sort of the importance of students finding out all this information now while they're studying, so that they're better prepared for the outside world. And that might make the transition easier as well between where they are now and what they want to do in the future.
Yeah, I'm so pleased you've asked me this question, Alex, because I think this is one of the most important ones, because often when I'm at D&AD and we've been at the New Blood Festival and there'll be all these grads there and they'll be like, what? I thought I'd made it. I'm here, I've got my stand, I'm going to get snapped up. There's going to be like clients and brands rushing to offer me a job, and actually with every industry leaders talk that I've run, and I ask people, how did you get into the industry? Like Stuart Goff at Pentagram, he worked as a freelancer for a while until he finally got that job. Like there's this real like jittery start to every single creative's career. Like this is the industry, it happens to everyone while you find your home. How you can best equip yourself to find the right design home for you is doing your research in advance, and finding out, like, look at the work that you like and why does that catch your eye, and why are you drawn to those sorts of clients, and who are the agencies producing work for those sorts of clients. And you know, here's a plug here about my industry leaders talks, but I created those for juniors actually to give you a window into the industry, so you could see, how does Squint Opera run their business, what work do they produce, what's going on over at Bulletproof, what is that somewhere I want to go. And once you've found out where you want to go, like there's so many different sectors. Do you want to be an advertising creative and work for a big advertising agency and partner up with someone and form a team? Do you want to work for a branding agency? Do you want to focus more on packaging? Do you want to do more like wayfinding, environmental graphics? Like, where do you want to go? Because our sector is so broad, and there's a real difference between working in-house. I used to work tons with architecture practices, so I found a really nice niche where I just placed loads of graphic designers in all the biggest and you know, best architecture practices in London, and that was a great little role because a lot of it was very like print based, and lots of designers like that. So yeah, you can only really work out where you want to go once you've got a direction in mind, and then you can tailor your work accordingly. So then when you do graduate and you do finish your studies and you're sending your CVs and portfolios over to those sorts of companies, it's a fit.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helps if you consider that whilst you're doing your studies.
Yeah, great, thank you. I love that as well. That I always say to the students, it is usually a wibbly wobbly path before you get there, and that's okay because you're taking in all these different experiences, good and bad, to find your way home. So I like that version of coming home as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, and definitely do your research and put yourself out there and put yourself forward for things. Like someone at Industry Leaders, they've been sketching some of the talks, and they then got a job, like a freelance gig offered off the back of the fact that they'd been involved in a live sketch of the session. So that's the thing, you've got to be in it to almost win it and get exposure. So just showing up for things like being here today, listening to this talk, going on to further talks as well. Make the most of this access that you have to these sorts of things online from your house.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just make an observation, Nikki? Because it does sound to me like you're saying that the time when you're studying is a great time to explore where you want to go, rather than thinking about where you want to go when you graduate. Is that it? Is that a key point?
This is what I see from being someone at the final end. So I'm the person that people meet once they finish their studies with you guys, and then they're like, hey Nikki, can you help me get a job? I've finished my studies. And then if they've never kind of considered where they may want to go and their portfolio is in no way reflective of that, that can become a bit tricky, because then they're just going into the industry completely cold.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that not just myself, but like on the course, as Alex said, although we have units based around research, and Alex was actually citing one of them specifically, studio units as well. You know, if a student has a problem and it comes to them on a brief, so much of the time, you know, they will be thinking about the discipline rather than what's going on around them within that discipline immediately. So you know, there'll be stuff in the sketchbook from Australia, or, you know, agencies in Germany, and like, you know, let's use this time to learn about Manchester or the Northwest. You know, where are you going to end up? I mean, you know, do those two things at the same time. You know, if you're looking at branding, if you're wayfinding or advertising, or, you know, what motion, whatever it might be, you know, look at Ahoy, look at The Chase, you know, look at, you know, Kin and Carter, look at companies where you might be looking to go or where you might end up. Is that a fair advice?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And also, one thing I do want to say that is a bit of a positive is it's not all London centric at the moment, actually. If anything, companies are considering, and I'm speaking to clients about this all the time. It used to be you had to be living in London, paying really expensive rent somewhere to get a job with a London agency. Clients are looking further afield. They're actually saying, okay, what talent have we got across the UK? And I've had more interest from European clients wanting to use me as well, which is a weird thing that's happened from the pandemic. And yeah, so this is actually opening more opportunities if some designers have had to like move back home. I mean, I had to leave London myself and move into a smaller flat by the seaside. But that doesn't mean that I'm cut off from the industry, because everyone is working from home. So you could really make the most of that situation at the moment.
Stephen's just picked up on that and he's asking you a question. Stephen, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Stephen.
Hi. What state is the industry in? I'm previously from industry. I've actually done 34 years. I'm currently retraining in motion graphics. I've been out of the industry.
That's great that you're retraining in motion graphics, because that's a real, that's in demand, big style at the moment as a skill. So yeah, that's brilliant.
I came from a branding and packaging background.
Yeah.
For me personally, I saw a decline in that. A lot of offshoring going on. You know, a lot of jobs being done in Indonesia and the Far East. So that's why I jumped ship personally. But my question is, I've been out of the industry for a while. I've sort of lost a few contacts, you know, due to not being anywhere and like everybody else in your own little prison at the moment. But I was just wondering, what do you find? Is there any positivity out there? Everything, you know, we hear a lot of negative things on the news, but is there any positivity about? And what kind of state do you think the industry is going to be in 6 months, 12 months' time?
Yeah, do you know what, Stephen? I would love to be able to answer that for you. All I can go off the back of a couple of facts of what we're faced with at the moment. The market for the past year has been so quiet. And that's why I started Industry Leaders, and that's why I set up like Post Quarantine, was because I was twiddling my thumbs with not a lot to do. And now the market started picking up a little bit, but we do have Brexit to contend with, which is going to be the next hurdle to overcome. But that being said, I've had European clients reach out to me because, you know, basic economics is, you know, when our pound takes a bit of a hit, which I think it will do, it already has done, our exports will go up. And the UK is still very much respected on the world stage in regards to design and creativity. We still have some of the best creative institutions in the world. So our design exports might go up. I mean, we don't have to worry about things like lorries and paperwork, do we? We just send a WeTransfer file over, so we can kind of swerve that a little bit. But yeah, it is quiet. The government at the moment, because they're furloughing so many people, there's talk of things like, you know, zombie companies and what's going to happen once the government removes that support, really. Are we going to see a watershed of redundancies? There are companies that have made redundancies that are starting with a clean slate, that have approached me, that are now looking for me to help build some of their design teams for them with new talent. So there's all sorts going on. I'm always like to be a positive person. That's just how I am. I always like to try and see the positives from any situation, but I'm not gonna say that it is tough out there, and I think it's going to be tough for a little while, and I think we have to strap ourselves in and expect a bumpy ride is all I'm going to say. But yeah, we just have to sit tight, really.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I would love to be able to say, I predict in 6 months, 9 months time, we're going to bounce back and there's going to be loads of work out there. There will be work, but we just have to be realistic with the pandemic and the fact it's going to be slow for everyone across Europe for a bit as well, whilst we ease out of this and companies start to feel confident to spend their money, because there are brands out there that have, you know, make billions and millions of pounds and they just haven't been spending it, and some of those I've noticed have started spending their money, so the economy has picked up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to add, I did freelance for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Don't restrict yourself to where your region is. Little stories. I worked at Cadbury's in their studio for 13 years. Then I went freelance and I moved to the Northwest. And I started looking for freelance work up here. And my first 2 clients, one was in London and one was in Sydney. So, you know, with the way things are at the moment, I think it's going to swing to people being able to look for work elsewhere. And especially with places like Australia, because I did a lot of retouching and production work, I was doing production work in the day, overnighting it, you know, sending it via WeTransfer for them to pick up first thing in the morning. So if you can't find it in the UK, look broader is what I'd say.
Yeah, and you're so right there, Stephen. I think that there might be a chance for international clients off the back of this, actually, because we've realised people can work from home and deliver good work. So that could be a positive.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Is there any more questions? Anyone? No. Can I just ask Nikki, just in case? Oh, sorry, Sam. Just bear with me a sec. Just to expand on the industry leaders, just for those who aren't aware of your talks at the moment, and obviously just to promote us a little bit, because personally I think there's, you know, really good variation of guests that you have on there. So can you just expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so begin with, I started off asking inverted commas industry leaders, so everyone that really was senior level at like Wolff Olins, like Vayner Media, Spotify, etc., real trailblazers in the industry. I've actually spun it on its head with the second series, where I've been asking like future industry leaders, people that are showing real potential. I've got some junior talent in the next, this series, some more to be announced actually, that are, you know, really promising, showing a promising start to the industry, just to kind of give them a platform and elevate them as well, as because I feel that a lot of agencies are missing out on having junior talent, because we all say all the time that juniors are the lifeblood of an industry, of our industry, and all these creative directors and design directors, you know, they still need to learn, and people look to learn from juniors. It's like, how can we communicate with the younger generation? And we're really going to be missing out on that. So actually I'm doing senior people a favor by letting them know what great juniors there are out there, and what the juniors are doing and producing and seeing that senior people aren't. If I had endless budget, I'd love nothing more than to bring someone in, you know, that's in their early 20s to help me with my social media, because I think it's okay, but I'm very much a millennial trying to communicate, so I think I'm doing okay, but maybe I'm missing a few things. I don't even know how to begin with, like TikTok and Reels or whatever. I've tried. I'm awful.
I'm sure there's a few people on here that could help you. Yeah. No, I do like the fact you've got a younger generation sort of cohort work, you know, what you're talking to. It's great rather than listening to the same older generation personally, but yeah.
Yeah, we've heard them talk before as well. So it's good to give some fresh voices, some platforms as well, and hear what they've got to say.
Yeah. Just one. There's a question here from Sam. What's it? Do you want to come in, Sam, rather than me ask it?
Yeah, no problem. Just my last question, I guess. So all the kind of career talks I've attended at uni have always talked about the importance of networking, and as it's, you know, the pandemic, we can't go to physical events. LinkedIn's become kind of the space for that. But LinkedIn, whenever I'm on it, seems to be a place where everyone just shares their success. This is what I've achieved, look what I've done. How else can you be active on LinkedIn, you know, potentially connecting with others without just sharing those kind of posts?
Okay, there's some really good, you need to check out Right Here, Right Now. There's so many online communities you can join. And I've been on a few of these panels. And then after, like during the talk, I'm then put in rooms with people in these like sessions. And then I'll be talking to that person and they might tell me a bit what they do. And then we go back into the main like webinar phase of the talk. So there's so many like online networking things you can join. And yeah, LinkedIn isn't great if you're a junior. You want to be getting yourself in with these like online groups. Design Calendar have a Slack channel. Anton runs that, he's great. And just do some digging and join these platforms and these communities, because LinkedIn's not really going to be the place for you necessarily unless you're using it to connect with senior people. Twitter's good. If you can chime in on some conversations with a couple of senior people in the industry. I know of people that have got jobs at junior level through Twitter. I mean, that's something else to wrap your head around. I'm okay on Twitter, but I'm much stronger on Instagram. So, but there is a lot of support out there, like Maisie Benson's running something called Happy to Help, where she's got like senior creative directors giving up mentoring to grads. So it's just finding out where those groups are and then reaching out. You're better off reaching out to people that are in full-time roles where they might not be as busy, because they can really support you because they're still getting a salary at the end of the day. Whereas smaller startups, if they give up their time to do some mentoring, that distracts from the fact they could be doing client work to pay their own bills. Whereas someone's a creative director in an established agency, they're in a much better position to really share their time.
That's great, thank you. Just to follow up on that kind of mentorship, how do you go about asking someone to be a mentor for you? It seems like an awkward conversation to just bring up.
Go to Happy to Help, because these people put themselves forward already and they said, we're happy to help as mentors. So you're not approaching them, they've already put themselves forward to provide mentoring, and things like Kerning the Gap as well. So there is a lot out there. I like networking as well. It's definitely worth checking out for mentorship and help.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nikki, can I just check a couple of things with you, please?
Yeah.
Some advice here. Maisie Benson, happy to help, yeah?
Yes.
Can the students find that online?
Yeah, I interviewed her recently for Industry Leaders, and all the links are on like my Instagram. Okay. So yeah, Maisie Benson, just if you message her on Instagram, she's very open to you reaching her that way, or through Twitter, or just being happy to help.
Right Here, Right Now, is that a networking group, is it?
Yeah, they're called Right Here. Oh. They're based in like South London, Right Here, Right Now. Yeah. And they used to run in-person events, but now they run online events.
And Kerning the Gap is online, is it?
Yeah. They're running like webinars and
yeah. Okay. And I like networking. I'm just for the students so that they can, you know, because you've been dropping a couple of things along the way.
Yeah,
so
I know.
A chance to go back to them. Students like what? Design Calendar as well is something that you mentioned.
Yeah, Design Calendar is great, and that they have all different resources, and they have a Slack channel as well.
And you also mentioned Nikki Ross at the beginning.
Oh, Vicky Ross.
Vicky, God,
yeah. This is for anyone that's a copywriter or wants to become a copywriter. She's always tweeting amazing things. She's created Things You Overhear in Agencies. There's a little book, and enter things like 1 Minute Brief as well on Twitter. Yeah. That can be a good way for you to flex your creativity.
I just thought it would be nice to go back to some of the points that you've dropped along the way, so that students then can, because we will record this, and so this will be available for students to go back to, but I'm hoping that students are making notes along with the tutors. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? I'm just mindful of the time now. Nikki, was there anything that you or Paolo wanted to close on?
I was only going to ask about the post-quarantine projects that you've done. Is that still open for contributions, or?
Yeah, please write us a letter. So post-quarantine was created in the first lockdown, and it was all about getting people to write a letter to their future selves. So I guess this is, the pause button's been pressed. There's been a lot of time for reflection, and it was meant to be a bit of a positive project to say, what do you want to write to your future self? We'll reunite you with your letter. We're going to have a party, hopefully in a gallery, where we're going to display all the letters. We're looking to publish the letters in a book as well, so it could be like a time capsule piece, and that's one of my side hustles. We won an Adobe residency grant as well for that. So yeah, post quarantine on Insta, and we've just got a website as well, which looks quite lovely with all the letters on there. You can have a read through.
Fantastic, thank you. And that's on the link tree as well, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it is.
Okay, I think I'm done, everyone. I'm just conscious of the time here and keeping Nikki, because you probably need a break by now.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. I've loved this session. Thank you so much for asking me as well to be involved, and I hope that's been really helpful for everybody.
I'll just say to everybody, if you can get a chance to go right up to the top of the chat and copy all of Nikki's links, and our links are in there as well if you're interested in the course. Obviously, a massive thanks to Nikki for coming along 2 talks back to back.
No worries. I'm good.
Very
I've got
much
more.
Appreciated. Go
Sorry,
on,
Alex, I was just going to say I've got more talks this week as well, if any, and they're going to be running right up until the end of Feb and first week of March.
I think we'll be trying to pop your talks onto our Insta stories for sure. So we'll keep pushing some of them. We think they're very valuable for the students. So yeah, thank you ever so much, Nikki. It's
you're
massively
welcome.
appreciated. And I think other than to mention, of course, that we've got Anna Jack and Zach tomorrow from McCann alumni. So that'll be really nice. That will be about her journey from graduation to McCann. So that'll be quite an interesting one for everybody. And also to keep an eye out on our Instagram for more talks as and when they come. And I think that's it. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you very much, Nikki.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the support, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Nikki. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.